everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Intentional Life Podcast. I'm Amy Selby.
And I'm AJ Selby.
And this is where we love to talk about whether it's marriage or dating or work or just your walk with the Lord, any of those things, all the things, and your questions and topics that you present to us. And we love to dive into those and just talk about how adding just a little bit of extra intentionality into your daily life, into regular mundane things, just makes things go from complicated and overwhelmed to like just a little bit smoother. Does that make sense? Does that work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're right on, babe.
We love talking about doing life with intentionality. So what is the question we have for today, babe?
The question that we have today is, our culture is so quick to call someone a red flag and not recognizing people are imperfect. Obviously, there are big no's in Christian dating relationships, but not every little thing that you don't like is a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's less of a question and more of just a topic for us to discuss.
Sorry, I wasn't laughing at the question. I realized I was kind of like giggling a little bit. It was because our camera guy, David, was over there when you said red flag. He's over there going like this.
Red flag!
And I was like, don't laugh. This is a serious topic. Just David over there in the background.
Nice.
He makes us laugh. Okay,
man.
Anyway, back to the question. Back to the topic. Yeah, that's a good one.
Red flags. Yeah, it is more of a topic and less of a question. But yeah, what the heck is up with
You okay?
Yeah, it bugs me. I think probably
I thought you lost your train of thought for a second.
I'm trying to not lose my crap. Because I think that it bothers me as much as it bothers this other person, if not more, that we see people that so often, if there's, whether it's one single statement that's made or one thing that's done that they don't like. And I think for me, these red flags kind of fall into like the same general category of cancel culture. Where
yeah, that makes sense.
Someone is so easily canceled rather than viewed with the grace that we have been given.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there are things that are absolute blatant no's. And they talk about no's in Christian dating. I'm talking about no's just in life in general. Like, no, you shouldn't murder that person. Like, I get that. And that person is still a child of God.
Mm-hmm. Or even just somebody's actions or words taken out of context.
Yes.
And it's like, oh,
so
cancel.
And to clarify, because someone's going to red flag cancel me because I said the murder thing and that person's still a child of God. That does not mean that I'm okay with the actions that those people have taken, regardless of what the situation is. Everything still needs to go through due process in court and that kind of stuff. But us as a believer, as believers in Jesus, are to forgive, are to show grace. Grace does not mean free pass.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there is forgiveness and love to be shown. And that is in varying degrees and differences in how that's all walked out. So
yeah, clarifying. I mean, that was a pretty extreme example that you threw out there, but yes.
Welcome to my life. It's me. Hi. I'm the extreme example guy. It's me. So welcome to that. But
oh man.
Yeah, when it comes to red flags, like I've seen, I don't know, it's example. Let's do a hypothetical. So, Amy, there's some 27-year-old guy that still lives at home with his parents, is working a relatively successful job, has chosen not to move out on his own yet to save money. Is that a red flag?
I think at first glance, people, even myself, would assume, oh, that's a red flag. Like that dude's just mooching or he's whatever. But it's like, okay, really, do you know the guy? Did you take the time to ask, like, what the situation is? Like, why are you still living with your parents when you're, it's like, well, they just let me live here. And so I'm just going to do that. Like, then that's probably his attitude about it is the part that's a red flag.
Yeah.
If he's like, look, I'm paying my parents' rent. We have this agreement. I'm here for X amount of time while I'm figuring this, and this out, working on this over here. And like, I'm not saying he has to have like all this strategy stuff, but like if there's a plan and an order to it and like he's actually being responsible in that season, like, okay, maybe there's some grace for that. It's like, well, you just met me and you assumed that I'm a moocher, but actually, I lost my job because my company was laying off a bunch of people and I couldn't afford to stay where I was living. So my parents let me move in until I get a new job, get on my feet again, and then I'm going to go out and get my own place again.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, at first glance, it's like, if I'm a single lady and I want to date somebody, probably not going to be my first choice is a guy who's an adult grown man living with his parents. But what is the actual situation?
Yeah.
What's the context to why that's happening?
Yeah.
Is important.
Yeah. Context is key
Yes.
when it comes to a lot of things that I think that people consider to be red flags. Now, this person said there are definitive no's in Christian dating, which I'm guessing that they're talking about if there's a guy that is all of a sudden sending inappropriate pictures or asking for inappropriate pictures or trying to make a pass and, get handsy or anything like that. Sure. Still don't know. Again, still don't know if I necessarily say red flag. Let me give the context to why I'm saying that. Because A, we partially don't know how this person is raised. B, just because I'm saying there's a question mark on the red flag for me does not mean I'm saying it's not inappropriate. Highly inappropriate. Don't think it's or do not think it is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that it's something to be walked out and talked about in a healthy way that says, hey, that's not how I live my life. I'm not okay with doing that.
Right.
If you want to be in a relationship with me, I'm not doing that.
Mm.
Their response to that statement then dictates if it's a red flag or not.
So I do agree with like some of what you're saying about that and like we don't know how somebody's raised, all that stuff. That's true. And they, and I think we're specifically talking about Christian relationships. It's like the context that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, somebody might be like a brand new believer and they don't know that that's a no-no. Like,
right.
Nobody's told them, hey, that's not okay. It's not appropriate. I mean, in general, Christian or not, I really don't think that's appropriate. But you're right in the sense of like, if you say like, hey, here's my boundary, that's not okay. We're saving that for later. And if their response is like, oh, I'm going to do it anyway, or fine, I'm going to go find somebody who right. Okay. Yeah. Or they keep pushing it for sure.
Right.
Not only was that red flag behavior, but it's turned into like, oh, that's red flag attitude and character.
Yes.
So there's not really integrity there. There's not really character that's like, I care about you genuinely. That's selfish character at that point. Right. That's like, I care about me and I want to get handsy whether you like it or not.
Right.
Pass.
So, and
absolute pass.
with that, and that's what I was getting at, is that dependent upon what their response to that is, because
are they willing to grow
I'm just
and
going
learn
off of a scenario here where somebody, that young man may have never had a woman say that to him. Mm-hmm. He may have never had a relationship with a young Christian woman.
Or a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about with
Yeah,
how
yeah,
he was
yeah.
raised, is that he may have never been given that standard and have had accountability growing up. Same goes for men or women.
And
right?
yeah, and that's a good point.
And so I'm not sitting here taking the side of men and being like, always give men the benefit of the doubt. That's not what I'm trying to say here. What I am trying to say is that if someone doesn't know any different and then they're told, I don't do that and I live my life in a way that's different to how you've spent your entire life growing up.
Mm.
And the response is, oh, well, bump that. I'm going to go get handsy elsewhere. Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it's me. Hi, I'm the extreme example guy. It's me. I went that way again, but I wish that we had been given a few specific examples of what this person was talking about so that we could address those specifically. So, y'all, if you're writing in with something specific, you can tell us, hey, don't use our name. Obviously, we've never used names up to this point. We won't unless we're told, yes, you can do this. Please use my name and shout me out. No problem there. But if you don't want us to use your name, we're not going to. But the more information that we have, the more we can answer questions more specifically.
Yeah.
And so.
And I mean, they may not have had a specific example in mind.
Right.
They may have just been like, in general, this is what I'm observing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, what are a couple other red flags that maybe you have heard about, that.
Yeah.
Or I should say red flags in air quotes here.
Well, and this person, from what I'm remembering, this person was talking about like the difference between actual red flags and preferences.
Just stuff that you don't like.
Yeah. So if somebody's not living up to your preferences, whether it's for a dating relationship or I don't remember if their context was specifically in like dating, was that, or if it's just in general, like friendships and dating and stuff.
I think we can address all of it, but I mean, they did say, obviously there are big no's in Christian dating relationships, but not everything that you don't like is a red flag.
Okay. So they are specifically talking about dating. Yeah, obviously, like she said, there are obvious actual like no's. If somebody's not living their life with integrity and good character and like, that's an issue. And like you said, like there's always the opportunity to talk to somebody, but is there a wake of chaos around them at all times? I mean, that's kind of a red flag. But yeah, if you're sizing somebody up are they a red flag for me, a relationship with them based off of your personal preferences, I think you think a little too highly of your preferences. Okay. Because I don't know if a single human on earth is going to check every preference that we have for a relationship. And I'm not saying like you have a godly standard, so lower that. That's not what I'm saying either.
Right.
I'm saying don't be legalistic and haughty about your quote unquote religious godly standard. Mm-hmm. Like, is it actually godly?
Yeah.
Don't lower that standard.
So are you talking about like, I only ever listen to Christian music and the person that I'm dating should only ever listen to Christian music?
I mean, yeah, I think that is a preference. It's like, that's going to be real hard to find. And I'm not saying just bend because that's all you can find. But like, is that even realistic for most people? I mean, I'll say I have gone through seasons where like, unless you feel very convicted by the Lord that is how you're to live your life on like those certain things and that like, but especially you're dating. We're talking about dating. We're not talking about you're marrying this person yet. We're talking about like dating them. So are you going to put that expectation on everybody that you are potentially going to date? Is it like, just going off the example you just gave, my preference is I only listen to Christian music, therefore they must also. I don't know if that's, like, are they listening to real raunchy, dirty crap? Okay, that's questionable.
That's different. Yeah.
That's different. But it's like, I don't know. They like to listen to, literally my mind went blank of all artists. I don't know. They like to listen to a little country music or a little, I don't know. I literally every artist went out of my brain right then. But it's like, that's where I think it can get a little legalistic or a little like, well, if they're not doing it exactly how I'm doing it or how I'm convicted I should live, with those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just feel like that's a little hard.
Perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Great setup that you didn't know you were doing.
Oh.
And I just thought of it.
Oh.
We're talking about, I don't know that I would do it that way. Right? Me, dependent upon the content, I don't have a preference with rated R movies because I like action. I don't mind violence and gore. Like, that's like, I'm okay with it. You, on the other hand, you have a pretty hard line about rated R movies for you.
Mm-hmm.
To the point, y'all, there have been times where I have tried to not roll my eyes out of my head as she's talked about this before, when I'm like, it's just for language, which to me, like my censor in that is different. And I'm going to say it up front.
You're not as affected by it.
I'm not as
I
affected
am.
by
Yeah.
it. It doesn't bother me. I have a very different background in life. I spent 10 years as a medic between fire service and military. I have seen and heard it all.
Yeah.
However, and also I'm just going to call out right now, someone out there is going to clip that and be like, this Christian says that he watches rated R movies. Whatever. Anyways.
Oh my gosh.
But, and you know, early on, maybe it bothered me, but at this point, it's like, if it's rated R, I don't even bother to mention it to Amy because
like, mention, will you watch this with me?
Right.
Like, that's what you mean.
Because
yeah.
I just know that she won't be interested. So there are TV shows that I watch that she won't watch, or movies that I'll watch that she won't watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's a perfect example of this preference thing that you're talking about, where some music that I've listened to, some movies that I see, to some people might be considered red flags.
Mm.
Whereas it's not a red flag. I love Jesus. Actually, I won't say that it's not a red flag. Amy, is it a red flag?
Well, the music, when we first met, there was some music that you listened to that I was like, but I remember leaving a hangout, like a time that we were hanging out with like a couple other friends, and there was some song you'd been listening to that I was like, I mean, it was kind of dirty.
I don't even remember what song that
I don't know what the song was. I genuinely have no idea what it was. I didn't know what it was then. I don't know what it is now. But it was pretty dirty. I mean, and you had just come to work at the ministry where we were working. He had just come out of a very hard season of life, several years of not walking with the Lord at all, and you had just rededicated your life to the Lord.
Yeah.
So all of that context is like, he had just lived like 10 years where he threw walking with Jesus out the window and was like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So you did listen to whatever you wanted to listen to and watch whatever you wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And you were learning how to come out of that. And so I knew that. But I remember we were coming out of this hangout time, and there was some song you'd been listening to with this other guy. And like, you just had it on. You weren't really even singing along to it or anything. You just kind of had it on. And I just remember leaving that and being like, Jesus? Because I don't remember if we've talked about this or if we will talk about this, but Jesus already told me he was going to be my husband. It's a whole other story. Anyway, don't worry, I wasn't chasing him. But I was like, Jesus, if what you told me, if I heard you correctly, and this man is supposed to be my husband, you're going to have to fix that. Because I am not listening to that kind of music in my home. That is not the kind of music my husband is going to listen to. You change him. I didn't say a word to you about, and I could have, as your friend, I could have been like, dude, really? Like, we're on staff at a ministry. You really shouldn't listen to that. Like, I could have actually said that.
Yeah.
But I decided to back off and be like, Jesus, fix it. And it wasn't too long past that you stopped listening to that kind of stuff. And I just remember being like, and I mean, I don't know, maybe from time to time you still listen to something like that. I don't know. Because to you, you're one of those people who's like, I don't hear the lyrics, I hear the music. And I'm the kind of person who's like, I always hear lyrics first and music second. Yeah. So lyrics affect me.
Yeah, and we've talked about that too.
Very intensely.
Yeah.
But it was like, I mean, and I saw the Lord do work in you over a span of only a few months. Like he did a deep, kind of quick work in your heart and your life. And you were letting him. You were willing. And I think that's part of it too. Like, can I just kind of take that and run with it for a second?
Sure.
That like, not that that's an excuse for someone to continue to walk how they used to walk, but having grace for somebody, especially if, like, I grew up you grew up in a Christian home too. You just kind of walked away for a while.
Yeah, not kind of.
Okay, you did walk away for a while. You walked away from Jesus for a good, solid lot of time. I didn't. I grew up in a Christian home, and I've always loved Jesus. And I'm not saying I've always, like, done it the best all the time, but I've always walked with the Lord. And so it can be really easy for those of us who are like me, who've always grown up walking with Jesus and want to continue to walk with Jesus, and look at somebody who's a new believer or has just rededicated their life to the Lord and be like, well, they should be living like this, or they should. And it's like, give them a little grace, because they're figuring out how to hear the voice of God, how to hear the conviction of God on their life. Or even people who grew up in church, but they didn't actually walk with Jesus. They just went because their parents told them to. And now as an adult, they're actually starting to walk with the Lord. So we do have to keep that in mind when it comes to Christian relationships. It's not, again, like you said, it's not a license or a green flag, thumbs up, go, do whatever you want, free pass. But it is like, okay, there's a little bit of grace. I'm not going to just quick jump in and like judge you, talk down to you like, ooh, you're a horrible human. You're a horrible Christian because you listen to this song, or you're learning how that person might be learning how to walk with Jesus because they've never done it before, or they're doing it for the first time in a long time. They're learning how to tune their ear. They're trying to figure out what are the things that mean something to the Lord. What's the heart that he has that he wants me to have? And over time, the Holy Spirit convicts our hearts on, hey, maybe you shouldn't listen to that music. Do those lyrics really honor me? Do they really honor other people? If you're in a relationship with a woman, like I'm thinking about you listening to that music. I feel like the Lord would maybe convict, or I'll just use me. Hey, you in a relationship with your boyfriend or your husband, like, does that lyric really honor that person? Is that really honoring to them?
Yeah.
Is that really honoring toward you? Toward the heart of God? No. Okay, well, if I want to honor other people, honor the person I'm in a relationship with, honor myself, honor the God that I serve, I don't want to sing that. I don't want to listen. I don't want that getting in me.
Yeah.
And it's not it's of the world. It's that content. Like, no, that's not the heart that God has for other people and for myself. And anyway, I think I'm rambling a little bit, but my point is that person may be learning to tune their ear to the heart of God, to the voice of God. And they don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
So don't come at them with a condemning voice of, you should not be listening to that. You should not be watching that. If they're a brother and sister in Christ, you can have a conversation, sure. But make sure it's not in a condemning way. And if it's somebody who's claimed to be a Christian for a really long time, they're like, yeah, I walk with Jesus, but they're still acting this way. They're still treating people this way. They're talking down to people all the time. You know, if they're saying things that are highly inappropriate consistently, and like people do say things to them or whatever, and they're not, you know, they're in a church and they're not applying to their life the things that they're being taught, that is a red flag. If they're in a community,
yes,
and they're not actually doing anything to like work on their own walk, their own life, their own conduct, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Somebody who's like, anyway, yeah.
I think that oftentimes people get caught up in preferences or an observed behavior and get caught up in that as a red flag, rather than when said behavior is in conflict with your preference, like what you've been talking about, rather than the behavior being a character issue or an issue of integrity. Like if we're talking about somebody that, like the things that there's so many to list, but some of the things that matter in a relationship that I would consider to be a red flag would be, are they willing to be held accountable? Like, do they have people in their life that they walk in accountability with? Are they, do they deal with anger issues or substance abuse issues? Do they have, how do they treat people in general? Like if you're in relationship with them and you're able to observe how they talk to their sister or their mother or their dad or their brother.
Or their boss.
I didn't mean to Dr. Seuss that, but that was kind of cool. Got bars. Anyways, when it comes to how do they treat their family? How do they talk about their family? Because the way that people treat others in relationship is often a learned behavior from how they treat those closest to them.
Yeah.
And so,
and how they feel like talk to and about authority figures in their life.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to, their boss, or, do they have major trust issues? Are they ultra controlling? Those are things that I would definitely consider to be red flags. Like, watch out for those kinds of things. Don't involve yourself with people that have those kinds of things. We've been walking through life with someone that has, they've dated somebody on and off that has consistently shown those red flags of a lack of willingness to be held accountable, willingness to, have any kind of solid leadership. They consistently have substance abuse problems. They consistently have anger issues. And these things have flared up in different ways here and there and have gradually increased in intensity over time until it reached a point where, they called and asked us a question about, what am I supposed to do with this?
The person dealing with the person with the red flags.
Correct.
Not the red flag person calling us.
Correct.
Yes. Just clarify.
This young lady called us and said, what am I supposed to do with this young man that's, whose behavior is this way? And what we laid out is, we laid out a few things, but a couple of them was what love really looks like. And it's not selfish. It doesn't take. It's not something that's only beneficial to that other individual. And then, like, that was just one part of what we did, but we walked through. And I think one of the things that kind of helped her see things a little bit differently, we said, if you were observing a relationship with one of your sisters,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw her being treated this way, what would you advise her to do in regards to that relationship? She said, I'd tell her to get the hell out.
Yeah.
And I said, then why should our conversation with you be any different? And it was kind of a light bulb moment for her, because she realized that those were things that had to do with character and integrity that mattered
Mm-hmm.
to the longevity of a relationship,
Yeah.
versus every other aspect of this guy was super entertaining and intriguing, and was just he's a great
when he's in a healthy space, which
when
we've
he's in
seen
a
him in a
healthy
healthy
space,
space, he's great.
he's a
He's a
great guy.
wonderful person.
I do, and I love him dearly. Like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
And you can care about somebody like that and choose to not be in relationship with them because of their unhealthy behavior. That is a true red flag. And so,
yeah. Well, and when being in a relationship with that person, whether romantically or friendship, spirals you,
yes.
big no. Like, and it's not that it's all that person's fault. Like, you got some stuff you need to work on if you keep going back to that. But it's like,
and not even if you keep going back to it, but I mean, that kind of touches on a different aspect of relationships that maybe we'll cover a different time.
Right.
But when it comes to how do you allow yourself to be affected by the people around you?
yeah, I mean, that's true too.
And if you have to be the one to have the ownership to walk in the maturity of how you allow other people affect you, affect your walk with the Lord, affect how you approach life.
Mm-hmm.
And if other people have a greater impact on that than you do in your sole ownership of that, then there are some other things for you to work out within your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we've had those conversations with her as well. So that's a lot of flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if we actually I feel like we answered the question. I don't know if we did.
I feel like we pretty much answered.
Yeah. The things that are your preference that bother you, that are not character issues, either see someone else or get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what?
Or like be a friendship as that person is. Maybe they are just growing and learning right now. Be friends until they can mature a little bit further, and then see if there's a dating possibility there. Where it's like, you don't have to cut them out of your life completely. You know that they're trying to walk things out. They're learning, but
I'm just meaning in terms of the things that are your preference.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh my gosh, I could never date anybody that, I don't know, that doesn't close the toilet lid when they flush the toilet. Or I could never date somebody that puts their groceries away like this instead of that. Or like,
oh, you clearly might be an only child. I'm sorry. I am the youngest of 6 kids. Everybody does something differently than the next person.
Right.
And we had to learn real early, you got to get over it.
Right.
Otherwise, you're arguing all the time. Get over it. Learn. Communicate about that.
Yeah. And that's what we're getting at. Is that, especially once you get married, there are things that Amy and I both do that are vastly different from each other. And the truth is, the end of the day, it's not that big a deal. Mm-hmm. Sure, there are probably, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are probably things you do that irk me that I'm like, I don't understand why she does it that way. I would never do it that way. Goodness. And there are probably other things that I do that you would say the same about.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not an issue. It's not a red flag. Would we do
it's
them
not a character
vastly
issue.
different? Sure. But it's not an issue. It's not a character issue. It's not an issue of faith or anything like that. And so when we can approach those relationships with a little bit of grace, without judgment and condemnation.
And with wisdom.
And maturity.
Yeah.
Then.
And a little bit of get over yourself.
If necessary.
Well, look. Yes.
if necessary. And so, yeah.
Yeah. You want to draw a card?
Sure. Questions for humans again. This, I promise y'all, these sit in a stack. Look, I'm going to show y'all. There's just a random stack of them that we keep behind these books. And we each just grab them. None of this is planned.
Oh,
This
no.
card. What is something I do that is super annoying? We did not plant this.
That's funny. Well, let me think.
This is real life, y'all.
It is real
This
life.
is marriage.
Okay, it's the first one that popped into my noggin.
Yeah.
Probably because you just mentioned it as an example, but it's a real life thing. You do leave the toilet seat up. And it annoys me. And that's like, I feel like the classic, like, man versus woman debate.
Clarification. I don't leave the part that you sit on.
No, you leave
I leave the lid.
Excuse me. Yes. And that's gross to me.
And in 34 years of life, I've never had anybody tell me that I need to have it closed.
I always go behind you and close it.
I'm asking David. David, do you close it or no?
No, neither of us do.
See? Okay. So,
for me, it's gross to think about flushing the toilet and little nanoparticles going all across the...
That is way too...
It grosses me out.
That is way
Look,
too
I don't
much.
know if that's true or not, but in my brain, that's what happens. So I always close the lid. And also, as a precaution, our bathroom's kind of small. So if I'm turning around to put something on a shelf and I miss and it falls in the toilet, if the lid was down, it wouldn't be a problem. Anyway, it does annoy me. I don't hate you for that, and I don't nag you for it. I think I've mentioned it like twice in our entire marriage.
I can only think of one.
Okay, maybe once. And that was like a month ago.
Maybe.
So like I don't even talk about it.
Right.
But it irks me to my core.
I think that was a day that you woke up and you were grumpalumpagus that morning too. So that's probably why it even came up.
You just flushed the toilet.
That's probably the only reason why it came up. And so I think for you, I think it's that whenever you pack, I think it's that it's like the Russian doll of bags because she's got bags within other bags.
I like to compartmentalize.
I'm like, just throw the crap in your suitcase and let's go. You need a bag for your toiletries. Need maybe one other bag for like little things, but then just throw the rest of your clothes in there.
No.
And it's like, yo.
I use packing cubes. Does that mean, do you use those too?
Yo.
See, David understands.
Okay, look, at least
He's in the
David's on
same
both of our
vein.
sides on this. He's on my side for the toilet. He's on your
You're
side for
not
the
wrong for not
packing
using
cubes.
packing cubes. I'm not wrong for using,
know.
but I understand. It annoys you. I know. I get it. That's the
And
whole
I'm like,
point.
I just don't get it. I'm like,
It's how my brain
and
works.
I don't know if it's a guy thing. I don't know if it's a girl thing or whatever. Y'all let us know, actually. Let us know in the comments, about toilet seats. Not the part that you sit on, the lid part.
The toilet lid.
Let us know if you close or open the toilet lid. And then also about packing cubes. Like, do y'all Russian doll your packing situation, or do you just have a bag, you put your stuff in, and you go? Just let us know.
I know so many people who use packing cubes. So many.
I know. I don't.
My purse is like that half the time.
Maybe
I have
it's-
little bags of things in my purse.
And actually, I'll take a step back in that.
I'm sorry, it annoys
I
you,
do
though.
that.
I understand.
Here's the thing. I understand that. And it's not that I'm disorganized. Like, I throw all my crap in my suitcase. However, I use bags like that when I'm packing specific things that need to be compartmentalized. Like if I'm packing a med kit or I'm packing for camping or something like that, where these things live together. And if I need one thing out of that, more than likely I need multiple things out of that. So I'm just going to grab that one bag.
Mm-hmm.
That part makes sense to me. And I get that. At the same time, I'm like, I don't understand why I need 1 cube for my shirts, 1 cube for my pants, 1 cube for my socks. I don't get it. So y'all let us know in the comments.
No, all the clothes go together. All the
sweet baby Jesus. We're not going down the whole rabbit hole of how this works. I love you so much. I'm glad you find so much joy. I'm glad you find joy in the way that you pack.
Thank you.
But I can't do it. So, anyways, thank you so much for coming to this week of the Intentional Life podcast. Be sure to send in your questions to the Google form. Hit us up on socials. I'm AJ Selby.
I'm Amy Selby.
And this is the Intentional Life podcast.
Literally, I said something about packing cubes, and David goes,
Oh, yeah. I love them.
That's where it's at.